All right, 6-7, direct and inverse variation. So here we go. All right, direct variation is pretty much y varies directly as x. Kind of think it's like one goes up, the other goes up. One goes down, the other goes down. Kind of makes sense? Okay. So y is directly proportional. So that kind of means this, Nikki Grantland. Kind of think of like a business. If a business dumps so much money into advertising, okay, they're gonna have they're gonna expect to get a return on that, correct? Now it's not gonna be like tick for tack. It's gonna be like, hey, if I dump like $1 million into this, I might get like an extra like 250,000 in like subscribers or something like that. Does that make sense to you guys? Or I guess like what? Like YouTube at one point there was like buying likes or something. Do you guys remember that? So there was like on YouTube, you could like purchase likes because the way YouTube works is the more likes you have on your thing, the higher up on like the YouTube search it went. Do you guys know about this? Yeah, you could. No, but it's legal. I mean, I guess it's legal. If you want to pay me 50 cents to like your video, like, sure, bro, I'll like your video. I don't really care. But what I'm saying is it can be proportional. Okay. So a lot of companies figure out like, should I dump more money into it or should I not? All right. So the equation, I would probably star that, is number 3. It's y equals kx. Okay. And k is some some number, and it's the constant of proportionality. All right. So for an example of this, it is the total revenue R in dollars obtained from selling X ice show tickets is directly proportional to the number of tickets sold, X. When 10,000 tickets are sold, the total revenue is 142,500. It says find a mathematical model that relates the total revenue R to the number of tickets sold. Pretty simple, right, Lance? Sounds complicated because I put it in a section of, you know, direct variation and inverse variation, correct? But it's really simple. Lance, let's think about this one. All right. How much money do you make? That's how much money I make, right? That has to equal, right? How many tickets did I sell? 10,000, right? And do I know how much the tickets were? No, we call that K. Could you solve that, Lance? Pretty simple, right? So if I divide both sides by 10,000, what do we got? Wait, who's using a calculator? Somebody using a calculator? I was about to throw that against the wall. We can do this, no calculator. Here we go. Look. 1, 2, 3, 4, right? If I divide it by 10,000, all I have to do is move the decimal point 4 places to the left. So it'd just be 1425. Right? Sounds reasonable for a ice show. Now it says find the total revenue obtained from selling 12,000 tickets. Lance, how would I do that? Yeah, so now that I know how much the tickets are, okay, my revenue will equal 1425, because that's how much the ticket was, times 12,000. Right? All right, let's see. You guys can use a calculator for that one. I'm going to try and beat you with it. it 171,000? Ha! Got it. No, somebody did it. Don't steal my thunder, Cody. Don't steal my thunder. All right. Hooke's law.
Wait, can you leave that up for a second?
Of course. Has anybody heard of Hooke's law? Anybody plan on taking physics? No, you. What are you going to take instead? Anybody else thinking about taking physics? What are you taking, Isaac? That's fine. What do you take? Oh yeah. Nobody? You're not going to take it? Physics is fun.
Fun?
I love physics.
Don't you have to take calculus?
I mean, yeah, I did. I took physics and chem the same year.
I'm not taking calculus here.
It was glorious.
I'm taking free.
All right, Hooke's law. Hooke's law is all about springs and how far they stretch, right? Like, kind of think like you have a spring. When you're stretching it, it's kind of like the resistance to stretch, I guess. So Hooke's law for spring states that the distance the spring is stretched or compressed is directly proportional to the force on the spring. Okay, so it kind of means like if I put like a 10-pound weight on it, it's going to stretch so far. Okay, if I put a 20-pound weight on it, it's not going to stretch twice as far. Okay, it's all proportional though. So it says find a mathematical model that relates the distance the spring is stretched to the force applied to the spring. So up here it says directly proportional, so that's leading me to y equals kx. So I'm kind of thinking something like that. I think in my notes, yeah, that's what I used, y equals kx. All right, and then it says for A, we have what? A force of 20 pounds stretches the spring 5 inches. So I did 5 equals K times 20. Okay. And then K would be 5 divided by 20, which is 1/4. Okay. All right, how did I know to put the 5 in for y and not x? Well, the distance you stretch is proportional to the force applied. Does that make sense? So it's the distance is proportional to the force. So it's like the order of the words. Okay? You guys clear on that? So if we look back up here, okay, it says y is directly proportional to x. So down here, what I'm talking about, it says the distance the spring is stretched, that's y, is directly proportional to the force, that's x. Does that make sense? Chris, you're kind of staring at it and you're like lost. All right, Chris, do you see this word or this phrase directly proportional? Okay. Do you see how before that it says distance? After force. Look up in that gray box. It's like number 2. Do you see how it says y is directly proportional to x? Okay. So y comes before the words directly proportional. Agreed? Okay. So y up here would be the distance because that's coming before the words directly proportional. And x comes after that. That applies to force. So that's why I put the 5 in for y and not the 20. Does that make more sense now? It's not like I just willy-nilly knew it. It's because it came from this. Okay. Now it says, how far will a force of 30 pounds stretch a spring? Okay. So we want to know the y part. We found k down here is 1/4 of 30 because that's the force. Okay. So y equals, the distance equals 30 over 4, which is 15 over 2, which is 7.5. And we're talking about inches, right? So I am. All right. Are you guys okay with that? You sure? 15 over 2. Any questions on that?
What is directly proportional mean?
Kind of like as one goes up, the other goes up. You know, in algebra, when you were learning about correlation,
Yeah,
you're not a good liar.
well, I kind of remember.
You kind of remember? All right, positive correlation was as one goes up, the other goes up. The more you study, typically the higher test grade you get, correct?
Yeah,
The less you study, the lower test grade. That's a positive correlation, okay? The more TV you watch, the lower your grade is. Agreed? That's negative correlation. As one goes up, the other goes down.
so
Okay.
if you study a lot for a thing, you still get a low grade.
Those are called outliers. Besides the point, Jake. So up here, we're talking about proportional. So direct variation or directly proportional is talking about as one goes up, the other kind of goes up too. Okay. Seems a little funky, but the more weight I put on, the further my spring will stretch. Okay. So they're going in the same direction. All right. Now to switch that, okay, it's still direct variation, but now there's gonna be like squares and cubes to it, okay? So y varies directly as the nth power of x, pretty much just means that y equals k times x to the n. All right, so like in your WebAssign, it'll say like, oh, c is directly proportional to the cube of r. I actually think that's one of yours. All right, so just be like c equals k times r cubed. Okay, Nikki Granlund, you okay?
Yeah.
You're joining Jake in the 4 Lie Club? Yeah, boy. All right, look. The distance a ball rolls down an inclined plane is directly proportional. Okay, so what I've committed to memory is directly proportional is y equals kx. Hello? How's it going? All right, thank you. All right, bye. All right, so I remember engraved in my brain is the formula y equals kx. Okay, because that's directly proportional. Does everybody agree? Is everybody okay with that? Y equals kx. Now, up here, it says directly proportional. So I'm thinking y equals kx. Now, do you see the words, Jay, to the square of the time? So it's not going to be y equals kx, it's going to be y equals kx squared. Do you see that? Okay. So during the first second, a ball rolls down a plane a distance of 6 feet. Find a mathematical model that relates the distance to the time traveled. All right. So, Chris, distance. Okay. See the distance comes first. So in ag, instead of calling it y equals kx, okay, I'm going to use variables that actually make sense to you. The distance, d, equals, now it says directly proportional. Agreed, Chris? So directly proportional means y equals kx. Agreed? Now, k, we're always going to use k, but the next variable I use says time, right? So I'm talking about distance and time. Still with me? Now, it says directly proportional to the square of the time. So it's going to be the distance equals some constant times the time squared. Okay? Now, why is it not d equals rt? Well, it could be rolling down like an incline, which I believe it is. Okay. So it's not gonna be like a flat surface. Now it says in the last sentence during the first second, okay, so T is 1. All right, the ball rolls 6 feet. So I write 6 equals K times 1 squared. And now I solve for K. So 6 equals 1K. 6 equals K. Leah, do you kind of see this a little bit? All right, just ingrain into your brain y equals kx for directly proportional. Like I said, I'm not quizzing you on it. All right, you're just gonna have 5 questions on WebAssign that you have to answer. And it's gonna ask you like, hey, like D is directly proportional to the cube of R. So it'd be like D equals K times R cubed, okay? Now it says, how far will the ball roll during the first 2 seconds? Well, I know that D equals K times T squared. I know that because I wrote it right there. So the distance is what I'm looking for. K we found, Julia, to be 6. And T is 2. You okay with that? Not too bad, right? So 2 squared is 4, so the distance equals 24 feet. Cody. Hands above the shoulder. Definition of a raised hand. What's up? Can you put that in the form of a question?
What was I doing?
Stretch. All right. All right, let's talk about inverse variation. So inverse variation, okay, is kind of a little opposite, okay? So direct variation is one goes up, the other one went up. Here, inverse, it's going to be like as one goes up, the other goes down. So the formula for that is y equals k divided by x. All right, Kailana, as x gets bigger and bigger and bigger, right, y would get smaller. Agreed? All right, so let's go to the actual word problem here. The marketing department of a large company has found that the demand for one of its hand tools varies inversely as the product or the price of the product. So when the price is low, more people are willing to buy the product than when the price is high. Does that make sense to you, Justin?
Yeah.
Okay. So when the price of the tool is $750, the monthly demand is 50,000 tools. Approximate the monthly demand if the price is reduced to $6. Does anybody know why they might want to do this? Yeah. Okay. Lance? Correct. Could you hear the difference in the two? Okay. So if I drop the price, okay, yes, I'm going to make less money per tool, but we're hoping that the increase in sales in the tool will overtake the amount of money that I lost. So that's why they're doing this. So up here, notice, Chris, it says inversely, right? See that? So it's going to be y equals k divided by x. Okay? Because I don't think it did it say Xford? I don't think it said inversely of the square. Yeah. So y equals k divided by x. All right, so now, what is it? It's going to be, it says, when the price of the tool is $750, the monthly demand is 5,000. That word is, do you guys remember that word is? from algebra. Is means what? Equals, right? Like 3 plus 5 is 8. 3 plus 5 equals 8. So here, 50,000 equals K divided by 750. Okay, multiply both sides by 750. Now I'm going to use a calculator here. Let's see. Half of 50,000 is 25,000. And then 7 times 50,000 is 350,000. Right? So if I have 25,000 plus 350,000, that's 375,000 equals cash. Am I right? You checked it? Okay. Now it says, approximate the monthly demand if the price is reduced to $6. Okay. So now I'm looking for Y in this case. I have K. So K was 375,000 divided by $6. So type that in. We're going to get 6, 2, 5, 0, 0. Did I get that right? So 62,500. That's my demand. And then to kind of bring it around to like, hey, does it make sense? Well, I can do $7.50 times like that 50,000. We can see where it's going to end up being. All right. So we can see, is it worth it? Okay. So that's kind of like how many I would need to sell in order for it to be like the same. So if I actually sold more, then I would be making a profit. Okay. Like a larger profit. All right. Last question. Let me see this. Oh, I remember this one. We're going to skip this last one. All right, and I'm going to give you the rest of the time to work on your WebAssign.